A 16-year-old boy and girl in 1964 Costa Rica, that he did. Let us go back and take a closer look.
Her rose was the flower that the bee ever cruised, meeting there the butterfly that love chooses.
The bee unfolded the petals of the blossom, then drank the nectar of love's sweet juices.
We float along, immersed in the romantic afterglow, the water sinking into the sands, half drying before wetting again, the moisture rising up into the air. We were fully immersed in love's boundless dream, floating in peace on beauty's quiet stream. Truth was clearly seen. It was so bright and right, for purity's goodness swelled each sparkling gleam. Awash on the love-made shore, we overcame our senses, leaving them behind, unclaimed, as we floated free, quenched in a sunset sea, basking in reflections of the scarlet flame. As ghostly phantoms, specters with human powers known from myth, we lay awash on some distant shore, our senses shining forevermore. Our blood ran warm with the sun's heat at noon, and at night our spirits swept by the swelling moon. Air surrounds us and the ocean flowed through us. Earth's rhythm was always playing our tune. Minutes, hours, and days do ever sequence the whole, as month after month seasons the year all told. Youth, prime, and old age actualize a life, and generations bridge the centuries old. Castle builders laid stones across the sky, and dream merchants gave gifts of unreality. Mirages sprang to life at slightest touch. The impossible became our reality.
By the 3rd century AD, Alexandria had become a cosmopolitan population with conflicting philosophies and religions that eventually turned the city's cultural melting pot into a boiling cauldron of civil dissent. Under the rule of Aurelian in 272 and Diocletius in 296, the library suffered several destructive assaults. Areas that contained scientific, alchemy, and other pseudoscience texts were burned, but much of the rest of the library remained intact. In 391 AD, the last great director of the library fell out of favor with the Christian bishop of Alexandria, Theophilos. It is believed that Theophilos considered the library a hotbed of paganism and convinced the Emperor Theodosius, also a Christian, to burn the library. It is not known how much of the collection was destroyed due to the fact that the library was stored in several buildings. There are reports that only one building was destroyed, and the main collection stored in the library of the Serapeum survived. After all of these disasters, the Alexandriana scholar Parsons wrote in his book, The Alexandrian Library, if there is one outstanding characteristic of the library, it is its genius in surviving destruction. Throughout the entire history of the library, scholars have found conflicting stories as to how much of the library was destroyed during each assault. Only one thing is certain as of today: it has completely vanished.
Could it be that something remains of the contents of the great library? She wondered, as we went back to look at the pictures in the teacher's house again.
We had found a new scrap written by the teacher in the old classroom, which was perhaps the key to it all. Yes, the library's curator, a scholar with the gift of action, spirits its treasures away. With a company of Roman mercenaries, a small army of slaves, and a fleet of ships, he transports the priceless treasures of the ancients across an unknown sea to a barren land, where they are hidden in caverns tunneled by the slaves, only to see his company slaughtered by a horde of barbarians, except for the crew of one small merchant ship that manages to escape. What do you think we'll find out here?
I don't know, but I'm excited to see.
We found nothing on the first picture. No pencil marks, nothing, nor on the other picture. And they made repairs in a land that had dwarf pines.
And this was somewhere between where they'd first stashed the treasures and the cold place where they ended up dead. Fire and ice is written there.
The treasures were buried in Texas. That was the other picture on the wall.
There are dwarf pines on the Jersey Shore. I've heard about them. That was only part way, though.
Perhaps nor'easters swept them too far north to recover.
Sailing was rudimentary in those days, with little tacking, for example.
So this library museum curator sailed a fleet to America in 391 AD.
Why not? For what other place would be safe?
A risky voyage.
But no one knew of the New World back then.
True, but it's still amazing what knowledge would have been in that library.
The barbarians who wiped them out were American Indians, which happened after the treasures were stashed. They were heading back home.
But we have no idea where to look in Texas. Big River.
The Rio Grande.
Ptolemy founded a massive museum and library from scratch. The inventory became monumental. His descendants, through Cleopatra and later successors, all continued to acquire manuscripts and art objects until the museum, and especially the library, became one of the largest storehouses of art, science, and literature that has ever existed. This vast collection of knowledge lasted until the year 391 AD. In that year, Emperor Theodosius and the Patriarch of Alexandria, Theophilos, who was a religious nutcase, decided all reference to anything except newly fanned Christian principles was paganism. They masterminded the destruction of the library's contents. Statues, fabulous works of art in marble, bronze, gold, and ivory, incredible paintings and tapestries, countless numbers of books inscribed on lambskin or papyrus scrolls, even Alexander's corpse, all were to be smashed into dust or burned to ashes. Researchers and scholars pretty much had the run of the place to examine, catalog, translate, and edit, and to publish their findings. You see, the library and its adjoining museum went far beyond being mere depositories. Their halls launched the true science of creative scholarship. The library became the first true reference library, as we think of today, where books were systematically cataloged. In fact, the complex was known as the Place of the Muses. Later empires and nations owe a staggering debt to the Alexandria Library. Few institutions of knowledge have produced so much. Pliny, a celebrated Roman of the 1st century AD, invented and wrote the world's first encyclopedia. Aristophanes, head of the library 200 years before Christ, was the father of the dictionary. Callimachus, a famous writer and authority on Greek tragedy, compiled the earliest who's who. The great mathematician Euclid devised the first known textbook on geometry. Dionysius organized grammar into a coherent system and published his Art of Grammar, which became the model text for all languages, written and spoken. These men and thousands of others labored and produced their epic achievements while working at the library.
This is describing a university.
Together, the library and museum were considered the university of the Hellenistic world. The immense structures of white marble contained picture galleries, statuary halls, theaters for poetry reading, and lectures on everything from astronomy to geology. There were also dormitories, a dining hall, cloisters along colonnades for contemplation, and an animal park and botanical garden. 10 great halls housed different categories of manuscripts and books. Hundreds of thousands of them were handwritten on either papyrus or parchment, and then rolled into scrolls and stored in bronze tubes. We took several weeks to think it over.
The thirsty sun had raised the morn's dewdrops and sculpted a mist, forming clouds of airdrops.
Long the world lay dry in afternoon's beam, till quenching darkness cried forth its teardrops.
We then looked to the earth as from the night sky.
As the sky began to fall, all around the sequined stars floated down to ground.
Oh, it was a crystalline cathedral, built from falling stars in the holy night.
Among the lights that danced in the sky, this haven waited for she and I, a world where flowers bloomed and fountains sprayed. We were on it, a paradise called Earth to glorify.
Now to those of you who ignore life's romance, ignorance, like shadow, has no substance.
The shade is removed by the light within. Feel the rhythm of the universal dance.
Willy-nilly we went, whence all there is to knowing.
Hence thither we went on hither, flowing to find that we were truly free to be in body and mind.
Quenchless, boundless, ever bright and burning, our mind's light searched every dark cavern, probing, imagining, its beam alighting upon the earth or high atop cloud mist.
We found that there's an urge between root and flower, plant and soil, leaf and sun, air and water, day star and planet, valley and mountain, wind and mist, man and woman, forever.
We heard woodlands that once only whispered, meadows where there was once but a murmur, and prairies and grasslands unhushed, full of wondrous sounds, the music from near beyond the human range.
Like living lenses, we mirrored our love in feedback loops, images spiraling above, echoing as infinite reflections that filled up the scene, for that's what love's made of. We're stumped again.
Yes, stumped and more stumped.
Let's go back and take those pictures of Newfoundland and Texas and analyze them some more.
Somehow those pictures have the answer on them.
We went back there and folded them up and took them with us on our travels on some extended weekends. A 120-volume catalog of the contents of the library was written by Callimachus, but nothing of the catalog has survived. It is estimated that the total accumulation swelled to 400,000 to 700,000 at the time of Julius Caesar's infamous arrival in 48 BC. These works included every major work of the ancient Greeks. It was also the home of great sculpture and the workplace of distinguished scholars, like Aristophanes of Byzantium and Apollonius of Rhodes. The complex of rooms for the library and the museum that contained artworks was known as the Place of the Muses. In it contained the sacred writings of the Egyptians and Jews, music scores, medicine and science texts, and philosophy. It is believed that the entire works of Sophocles, Euripides, Aristotle, Plato, and Homer were present, though what was lost from these masters is unknown. Claudius wrote a history of the Etruscans. a civilization occupying northeast Italy from 8th to 1st century, of which we know very little at present. Pliny wrote the world's first encyclopedia from sources in the library during the 1st century AD. Euclid wrote the first textbook on geometry. Dionysius wrote Art of Grammar, which became a model for much of the world's grammarian ordinances. The last curator of the library wrote over 100 books covering 2,000 years of the world's known history to that time. We wrote and wrote, meanwhile. And some I know deeply and humbly see that our species and the rest have no special and designed place here in this entangled forest.
As for we cherished every moment of existence blessed.
Starlight was the origin of our being, the source of matter, energy, everything after.
Permanent, reassuring, unquenchable, it's our radiant soul, a self-winding mainspring.
Men and women can't exist in isolation, for, like valleys that give rise to mountains, the nature of one makes necessary the other.
When they're joined in love, there's wholeness again.
The spirit flows from moment to moment, connecting and savoring life's events.
Drinking in the sounds, currents, textures, scents, and subtle delights.
Creating a being that is self-content. Never struggle against the way things are, but rather become the way that things are.
When you give yourself to the moving whole, natural currents can carry you quite far.
Breathe in all that's good, breathe out all that's bad. Peace flows into you, it's warm, wet, and glad. Feel it spread throughout your body, and then say, "This is the best life that I've ever had."
We took out the map of Texas and looked at it closely.
Holy smokes, there's a city in Texas on the Rio Grande named Roma.
Perhaps it has 7 hills and the treasures.
And is ever in the middle of drug trafficking, for there's a bridge to Mexico there.
We'll be safe. The danger is on the Mexican side.
Could a ship sail up the Rio Grande to there?
No, not now, for it is too shallow, most of the river having been siphoned off by too many other towns. But back then, it would have been much deeper.
I'm ready to go if you are. We revolve, rotate, turn, and go round the sun.
We whirl, gyrate, and circle our most loving one.
So thus we wheel, twist and turn, twirl and sing.
Ever swinging, swiveling, pirouetting, and pivoting.
Time on its lovely stream brings all sweet things to us.
For time's the drink that quenches human thirst.
Water of life, we drink time, it drinks us.
Time on its stream bears all sweet things from us.
Yet it is always now, and that's where life is found.
Time, always gray with age.
Ever hurled its changes against nature's rock, time and time again. Reminiscence weathered, but could ne'er wither.
In those mists of time, yesteryear yet appeared.
So it is that about every 1,000 years the bird of time flies over a mountain. A feather falls. When the mountain has worn itself away, the end of forever has thus arrived, that day.